Hello everyone, it's Crystal Campbell and I'm here to give you my author illustrator study, and the person that I chose to do my study on was Melissa Sweet. Melissa Sweet has drawn and illustrated for many children literature books, picture books, and she has written books of her own. Melissa was born in Wyckoff, New Jersey in 1956, and as a child she loved to paint, draw, and just create anything, artistically that she could come up with and get her hands on as a young child. She attended college in Endicott College, in Massachusetts, where she received her AA, and then she later on went to Kansas City Art School, which is where she pretty much learned to develop her art of illustrating. It wasn't until the late 1980s that Melissa began to illustrate picture books. Melissa has won many awards for her books that she has illustrated for, and even written, the books that she has written herself. She's a New York Times Best Illustrator winner. She has won the NCTE Orbis Picus award, and she's a winner for that as well. The Sherbert Award, and she's just won many other awards on top of that. Her work is really good. If you have never, read any of her books or seen any of her drawings, for some of the books she's illustrated, they're really good. Melissa Sweet has illustrated over 100 books, and I think that's just very fascinating that someone's work, just to be as popular as, her work is, it's nice. And even, I haven't read all of her books or seen all the books that she's illustrated, but just what I've seen in my research, just the front cover, it's just so detailed, and the colors that she uses, and just the way the lines and how they kind of make the picture, on that page stand out. Her work is pretty great. Some of the books she's illustrated, a few names would be Little Red Riding, Firefly July, A Year of a Very Short Poems, and Spike the Mixed Up Monster. And some of the books that she has written are Some Writers, The Story of E.B. White, and Balloons Over Broadway, the story of the puppeteer of Macy's Parade. So that's actually the book that I have here, and that I'm just going to read a little bit from and just show you all some of her illustrations. So her book starts off with a quote: "Every little movement has a meaning of its own," by Tony Sarge. So it starts off: "From the time he was a little boy, Tony Sarge loved to figure out how to make things move. He once said he became a marionette man when he was only 6 years old. His father had asked him to feed their chickens at 6:30 in the morning every day. Tony had an idea. What if he could feed the chickens without leaving bed? He rigged up some pulleys and ran rope from the kitchen coop door to his bedroom window. That night he spread chicken feed outside the chicken coop doors. The next morning, Tony pulled on the rope, and the doors of the chicken coop opened. The chickens ate their breakfast, Tony stayed snug in bed, and his dad was so impressed that he never made Tony do another chore." When Tony grew up, he moved to London, where he discovered No one was making marionettes for kids anymore. So, out of wood, cloth, and string, Tony began to make puppets. He figured out ways to make his marionettes' movement so lifelike that they performed as if they were real actors. Word soon spread about Tony's amazing marionettes. When Tony moved to New York City, the Tony Sarge marionette began performing on Broadway. In the heart of New York City, in Herald Square, was the biggest story on earth. R.H. Macy's department store. Macy's had heard about Tony's puppets and asked him to design a puppet parade for the store's holiday window. So Tony made new puppets based on the storybook characters, then attached them to gears and pulleys to make them move. Macy's Wondertown. In Macy's Wondertown windows, Tony's mechanical marionettes danced across the stage as if they were magic. All day long they performed to shoppers jostling for a better look. But Macy's had an even bigger job in store for Tony. Many of the people working at Macy's were immigrants. And the holidays approached. They missed their hometown holidays traditions of music, dancing in the streets. Macy's agreed to put on a parade for their employees, and they hired Tony to help. Tony too was an immigrant, so he loved the idea of creating a parade based on street carnivals from all over the world. He made costumes and built horse-drawn floats, and Macy's even arranged to bring in bears, elephants, and camels from the Central Park Zoo. The animals joined hundreds of Macy's employees on the Thanksgiving Day 1924, winding their way from Harlem to Herald Square. It was a dazzling parade. In fact, Macy's first parade was such a success that they decided to have one every year on Thanksgiving Day to celebrate Americans' own holiday. And that's just a little bit from Balloons Over Broadway. So, the activity that I thought I would do based off of Melissa Sweet, I would like to pick out a bunch of books, written or preferably illustrated by her. And I would like to break off, depending on how many kids I have in a class, break them off into groups. And then from those groups, I would give them each a book that I would privately read with them. And the other groups wouldn't know anything about that book. I would then like for those groups to recreate and retell the story using illustrations only, and make it so that the illustrations, that they go along with the book and they're able, easy enough so that the other kids will understand what is going on in the book, and just get a grasp of what the book is about, and have them just kind of be hanging up in the classroom for other students to then go around and see and look at. I think that Melissa Sweet's illustrations are really, really great, and it's nice to see how much she puts into her pictures when it comes to children's books. And I haven't had a chance to read a lot of her books, but I would like to most definitely put them in a classroom, when I get my own classroom, to have a lot of her work into my room, and hopefully use a lot of her books for when I start teaching. So thank you for listening, and have a good day.